Welcome to the Wind Up with Will, everyone. I'm your host, Will, here with another episode. And today I'm going to give you my picks for the NCAA men's and women's tournaments. My last video, I hope you've watched it, went over how initially the bracket and the committee's decision, some of them controversial, some of them some people just seem to ignore, other ones people are very upset over. But today I'm going to go over my picks for the tournament, and I have a nice little bracket here for you. So we're going to go over that real quick now. So starting off we're going to start with the men's tournament, and then we're going to go over the women's tournament. The men's tournament in the South region, I have Auburn beating Alabama State, Louisville beating Creighton, Michigan beating San Diego. Is that UNC Sandy? I should have looked closer. I printed this bracket off of CBS, so it's not giving like the full names of some of these teams. Yeah, University of California, San Diego. So have Michigan beating them. I have Texas A&M beating Yale. Ole Miss beating is that South Dakota State? No, I'm sorry. I have I don't like the way that is portrayed. I have North Carolina coming out of the 11 seed, which they actually won last night. I have them beating Ole Miss and then going on further. So let me just correct that on my bracket because I don't like that it only picked one team. I don't like the way that I should have looked a little closer at it. Then I have Lipscomb upsetting Iowa State. I have Marquette beating New Mexico and Michigan State beating Bryant. And then in the West region, I have Florida beating Norfolk State, UConn beating Oklahoma, Memphis beating Colorado State, Maryland holding off Grand Canyon. I have an upset with the 11-6 seed. I have Drake beating Missouri. I've picked Drake to be an upset team the last couple of years or so, and they have one of the best defensive teams in the nation. Of course, they're going against Missouri, who I think is a pretty good offensive team, and has been a good team in the SEC this year. But I do think Drake is a team that's often overlooked. I think Missouri might overlook them, and Drake plays really well within their system. They don't try and play someone else's game. They play their system. They play the game they want to play, and they find ways to win. And I'm picking them to have an upset over Missouri. Then I have Texas Tech beating UNC Wilmington. I have Kansas beating Arkansas, and I have St. John's holding off Omaha. I keep mispronouncing it. It's Omaha. I have St. John's beating Omaha, even though I do think there was a part of me that considered picking Omaha just because St. John's has been so good all year. It would be very tournament like, NCAA tournament like for 15 Omaha, who no one really knows or cares about, to upset St. John's, a team that a lot of people are picking to go far in this tournament. So I considered picking Omaha, and I think they're a good team too. But I'm picking St. John's. I think St. John's could very much be a dark horse team to win the whole thing. But we'll see. Moving on over to the East region, still in the first round, I have Duke beating American, Mississippi State beating Baylor, Oregon beating Liberty. I paused on that one for a second because Liberty is a really good team. Arizona beating Akron. I have VCU, an 11 seed, upsetting BYU, the 6 seed, VCU advancing. Wisconsin beating Montana. I have St. Mary's beating Vanderbilt, and Alabama beating what is that school? It is not, their full name is not on my printed out bracket. Robert Morris. Kids, when you print out a bracket, you want to make sure you have the correct names on there, or that they're spelled out at least. That was my mistake. I'm not looking more carefully at this. We have Alabama beating Robert Morris. And then on down to the Midwest region. That was the East region, just did down to the Midwest region. I've got Houston beating SIUE. First time team in the NCAA tournament. Houston's one of the best teams in the nation. I think they're going to beat SIUE, who's making their debut in the tournament. I have Gonzaga beating Georgia. I think Georgia's one of those teams that shouldn't have been in the tournament. I just don't see. I think Gonzaga is a good team. It's maybe questionable, in my opinion, if they were good enough for the tournament, but they are still a good team, and I think that they're gonna beat Georgia. Clemson I have beating McNeese. And then I have an upset. I have High Point, the 13 seed, beating the number 4 seed Purdue. I just think that Purdue, after going to the national championship last year, they're going to have a little bit of a letdown, and I think High Point could knock them off. High Point could be this year's St. Peter's. You never know. It's their debut in the tournament. They're a really good team. I think they can knock off Purdue. Illinois, Texas. I have Illinois beating Texas. I think that might be the only 11 seed that I have losing. And yeah, that Texas is the only 11 seed I have losing in the first round. Illinois is really good. I think they've kind of gone underrated all year. At one point, they kind of snuck into the top 25 or were getting votes. They did really well in the Big Ten this year. I think they're a good team, and I think they're a dangerous team that a lot of people aren't really talking a lot about. Then I have Kentucky beating Troy. As much as it hurts me, I think Kentucky is going to beat Troy. They're not going to be bounced in the first round this year. I would very much love to see Troy beat them, but I think Kentucky is going to win that game. Then I have UCLA beating Utah State. Mick Cronin, former Murray State coach, I think him and his Bruins are going to beat Utah State. Then I have the last first round game. I've got Tennessee over Warford. I think Warford has a star in their center, their big man, who shoots free throws with a granny shot. I think that's going to be all over the internet once he plays. But I think Tennessee is one of the better teams in the nation. I think they're going to win and advance. Moving on to the second round, back on over to the South region, I have Auburn over Louisville, Michigan over Texas A&M, North Carolina over Lipscomb. As I said that, I should have mentioned earlier, Lipscomb I did have as a 14 seed upsetting Iowa State. I think Lipscomb is very good. They had a phenomenal year in the Atlantic Sun. Iowa State's really injured right now. I think that's going to hold them back and allow Lipscomb to advance to the second round, or could advance to the second round. Then I have, in that second round, I have North Carolina, the 11 seed, the team that people don't think should be in. I have them beating Lipscomb to go into the Sweet 16. I then have Marquette beating Michigan. I'm sorry. I have Marquette and Michigan State playing on Michigan State, winning to advance to the Sweet 16. Out of Florida and UConn, moving on down to the West region, I have Florida beating UConn. UConn's not going to win 3 in a row this year. They could, but they've had a down year. They've not been as well as they were the last 2 years, and Florida looks like they're maybe the best team in the nation. I'm picking Florida to beat UConn. Then I have, I think I mentioned it earlier. I might have skipped over it. I had the 12 seed Colorado State beating Memphis, the 5 seed in the first round to advance Colorado State. This was a tough game. That was a tough game for me to pick just because both of them are kind of, they're not power teams. They're kind of high end mid major teams, and they're both conference champions. So it's kind of unfortunate that they got stuck together. I don't think that was a good choice by the committee, but I think Colorado State wins that. I think Memphis is good, but I think Colorado State is going to shock some people and win. And then in the second round, I have Colorado State and Maryland playing. I have Maryland advancing there. I think they've just been up against much better competition in the Big Ten this year. Or I'm sorry, in the ACC. No, Big Ten. They're in the Big Ten. It's early in the morning. They're in the Big Ten. They were up against much better competition this year. At times, it looked like they might be the team to win the Big Ten. So I'm picking them to beat Colorado State. Then I've got Texas Tech and Drake playing, even though Drake could be a team to go on a Cinderella run. I'm picking Texas Tech. They've been a great team all year. They've formed into the team this year that I thought they were going to be last year. I got to see them play at Butler in Indianapolis last year, play the Butler Bulldogs. Great game. Butler won in overtime. Texas Tech shot the lights out, though. And from watching them in that game, I was like, that is a tournament team, and they could be dangerous. And I think they lost in like the second round last year. But I think they're a team this year. They could be poised to go on a run. They're a great team. They've done well in the Big 12, which is a good conference. So I'm going to pick them to beat Drake. Then I've got Kansas and St. John's. Kansas has just trended down towards the end of the year, and the only reason I have them winning in the first round is they're playing Arkansas, a team I don't think is very good or should be in the tournament. But they're running into a buzzsaw in St. John's. Buzzsaws like St. John's just run right through them. They're going to cut through them, and St. John's is going to go on to the Sweet 16 in the West region. Moving on over to the East, I have Duke beating Mississippi State in the second round. I think Duke's one of the best teams in the nation. I think they're poised for a Final Four run. I have Oregon beating Arizona, former conference opponents meeting in this game. Arizona is the higher seed, but Oregon has done really well in the Big Ten, and I think they're going to advance. VCU and Wisconsin playing. I'm picking Wisconsin, even though I'd love to see a small school like VCU go on a run. I think Wisconsin is just the bigger, better team, and at times this year they look like they were one of the best teams in the Big Ten or one of the best teams in the nation. They're great. I think they're going to advance. I then got St. Mary's and Alabama playing. I think this would be a great game. I think this would be a great game in the tournament, a game that could go to overtime. But I'm going to pick Alabama. I think Alabama at times had looked. Now I know they struggled down the stretch, but they looked like one of the best teams in the nation. I'm picking them over St. Mary's. Then Houston and Gonzaga. I'm picking Houston to win that game. Clemson and High Point. Even though High Point could be the St. Peter's this year, I'm picking Clemson to win that game and advance to the Sweet 16. Illinois, Kentucky. I'm picking Illinois. I think again, they've been overlooked, and I think Kentucky at times has shown weaknesses, especially with having the injuries that they have to their point guards. I think Illinois is just going to overcome that. Kentucky's going to struggle, and Kentucky struggled at times in the SEC with that. So I think they're going to struggle against a good Illinois team. UCLA and Tennessee. I'm picking Tennessee as again they're one of the best teams. On to the Sweet 16. Over back to the South region. I have Michigan over Auburn. That is a big upset. Michigan looked great winning the Big Ten tournament. Auburn struggled down the stretch, and they struggled a little bit in the SEC tournament, just going out in the semifinals. I think Auburn is a good team, and they could be the team to win it all. But as they've shown in years past, and what I think could happen this year, as I have on my bracket, they're going to crash out much earlier than they want to go. And Michigan is a really good team, and it's tough that they have to face them in the Sweet 16. I'm picking Michigan. North Carolina and Michigan State. I'm picking Michigan State. I think North Carolina is good enough to show that they maybe deserve to be in the tournament, but they're not going to be good enough to go win the whole thing. I'm picking Michigan State. They looked great in the Big Ten this year. They're going to go to the Elite Eight to have a rematch with their rival Michigan. In the West region, I have Florida coming out ahead of Maryland. Again, they're one of the best teams. Texas Tech St. John's. I've got St. John's in the West region going to the Elite Eight. Then in amongst Duke, Oregon, I have Duke beating Oregon. Wisconsin, Alabama, I've got Alabama over Wisconsin. And then on down into the Midwest region, I have Houston over Clemson and Tennessee over Illinois. So, I'm going to give you a brief look at my bracket so far. If it comes into view. So we'll go ahead and I don't want to quite reveal everything yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish off reading everything, then I'll show you what the bracket looks like. Final, on to the Elite Eight. I have Michigan coming out ahead of Michigan State, just the way that they finished that Big Ten tournament. I think they're a Final Four team. Florida, St. John's. I'd love to put St. John's in the Final Four, but the way Florida finished the SEC tournament, I have them, and they're a very popular pick for people to make it to the Final Four. Over in the East region, I have Duke beating Alabama, and I have Tennessee coming out ahead of Houston. So we're not going to have 3 or 4 teams from the SEC in the Final Four. I think we're going to have 2. We're going to have Florida and Tennessee. 2 teams made the SEC title game. And in the Final Four, I have Florida beating Michigan to go to the championship and Duke beating Tennessee. And then my national champion, I picked Duke to win. I'm trying to remember what I said this final score would be. 80-75. That's what I'm picking the final score to be. This is my men's bracket. I hope that you all take a close look at this. I'm trying to get it where it covers the full screen. I think you can see it there. You can pause if you want and look at the teams. We're going to go over to the women's bracket now. And I will try and not reveal everything by flipping this around for you. I'm going to go over it real quickly because we're running short on time here. In the first round, I have UCLA and Region One. I have UCLA beating the 16 seed. It's either UC San Diego or what is that team name? Is it Southland? Not really sure what that. Let me go over here. I can actually look at a full bracket here. Southern. So it's UC San Diego and Southern. I've got UCLA coming out of it. Either way, UCLA's best team in the nation. Georgia Tech, Richmond. I have Georgia Tech. Ole Miss, Ball State. I have Ole Miss. I have Baylor advancing past Grand Canyon. I have Florida State beating George Mason. I have LSU beating San Diego State. Michigan State beating Harvard, NC State beating Vermont. Down into Region 4 on the same side of the bracket, we have USC coming out ahead of UNC, is it Greenville? UNC Greensboro. I was thinking it was UNC Greensboro, but I was like, I didn't remember seeing their name. Of USC beating them. I have Mississippi State beating California. I think the SEC is a little tougher than playing in the ACC. I'm going to pick Mississippi State. Kansas State over Fairfield. Really thought Murray State might draw Kansas State and be in the bracket with Kentucky, but they're not. Kansas State beats Fairfield, and I've got Kentucky beating Liberty. And the 6 seed Iowa and the 11 seed Murray State. I have my Murray State Racers upsetting Iowa. As I said yesterday, I might. Well, I think I maybe said it yesterday. If I didn't, I'll explain now. I think Murray State can upset Iowa. They've got great shooting. They've got two great big forwards in Caitlin Young, who is nicknamed Kate the Great. She had her jersey number retired on senior night. That tells you how great she is. In the Missouri Valley tournament and the championship game, she scored her 3,000th point and moved into 15th place all time in NCAA Division I history. She is a phenomenal player. She's going to be hard for Iowa to handle. She's 6'1". She can move inside. She can shoot the three outside. And then Murray's also got Ava Learn, another 6-foot forward who is a little faster, very long arms, can block, gets a ton of rebounds from Murray State, and she can shoot the three outside as well and plays great lockdown defense. Also, Murray has got 3 really good guards that can shoot the ball well in Haven Ford, Hallie Polk, and Briley Pena, as well as key bench players like Trinity White and Jada Cook, who is in for defense. Murray has a really good shooting ability, and if they move the ball well and can get inside and dish it back out to their three-point shooters, I think they can beat Iowa. Iowa is down this year, having lost a lot of their key players from the last 2 Final Four runs, as their head coach also retired. They've just had a little bit of a down year. Well, more than a little bit of a down year for them. And I don't think they have dominating on size or dominating on shooting. They're just a good, solid team. And I think Murray can take advantage of that if they shoot the 3 ball well. So I'm picking Murray State to win that game. That's a game I know a lot more about than some of the others. So I'm picking Murray State to upset the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Racers are going racing into the second round. I've got Oklahoma beating Florida Gulf Coast. I've got Oklahoma State beating South Dakota State and UConn beating Arkansas State. Over on the other side, I got South Carolina over Tennessee Tech, Utah over Indiana, Alabama over Green Bay, Maryland over Norfolk State. I have Washington coming out of the first 4, beating Columbia in that first 4 game, and then beating West Virginia in the first round. 11 seed. I think Washington, they've been kind of a good team. They've kind of had a rebound year for them after having not made the tournament in a while. So I'm just picking them to go on a run. I have North Carolina over Oregon State. I have Oregon over Vanderbilt, another upset, 10-7. I've got Duke over Lehigh. Texas over the 16 seeds there. I can't read the abbreviations, what they are. High Point and William and Mary. I'm picking Texas coming out of that. Then I'm picking Creighton over Illinois. I know a little bit more about the Big East. I think Creighton's kind of a sneaky good team. I think they can beat Illinois. Then I've got South Florida. I have them beating Tennessee. Tennessee's women have kind of been an odd thing this year. They've been ranked for majority of the year. They've always been mentioned as a tournament team. They've been ranked majority of the year, but their record in conference is 500, and a lot of the good teams that they played, they didn't beat. So to me, it's a little confusing why they were considered so good all year when there were similar teams to them in in the SEC that are like in even in this tournament that are ranked lower, like Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has a similar record, similar conference record. I think the exact same conference record, and they're a 7 seed. Tennessee's a 5. It's just a little baffling to me. So I'm picking South Florida. I was kind of hoping Murray might draw Tennessee. I thought they might be a team that we could play with, but I'm picking South Florida. I think an upset could happen with Tennessee there losing. Ohio State over Montana State. Michigan, I have over the winner of Iowa State Princeton. I think Michigan's really good. I have Notre Dame over Stephen F. Austin. I have, or is it Sam F. Austin? It's SF Austin. I have Notre Dame over them. Louisville over Nebraska. TCU over, is it Fairleigh Dickinson? I believe it's Fairleigh Dickinson. Yeah, Fair Dickinson. Into the second round, I have you back over to the Region 1. I have UCLA over Georgia Tech, Baylor over Ole Miss, LSU over Florida State, NC State over Michigan State. I have USC over Mississippi State, Kansas State over Kentucky, and I had Murray State upsetting the number 3 Oklahoma Sooners to go on to the Sweet 16, going racing into the Sweet 16. I think Murray State could go on a run. I don't know much about Oklahoma, but I'm just kind of maybe a little bit of homer there, but I'm picking Murray State to advance. I have UConn beating Oklahoma State to go to the Sweet 16. On the other side of the bracket, I've got South Carolina over Utah, Alabama over Maryland, North Carolina over Washington, Duke over Oregon, Texas over Creighton, Ohio State over South Florida, Notre Dame over Michigan, fierce rivalry there between the Wolverines and Fighting Irish, and TCU over Louisville. Into the Sweet 16 in Region 1, I have UCLA over Baylor, LSU over NC State, USC over Kansas State, and unfortunately, I have the UConn Huskies beating the Murray State Racers. I would love Murray State to go farther, but I think that UConn, if they run into UConn, that's going to be an issue. UConn is really, really good, and a lot of people are picking them to go to the Final Four. So I got UConn beating Murray State, and that was in Region 4. Over to Region 2, I've got South Carolina over Alabama. I have Duke over North Carolina. So 2 in-conference rivalry matchups in the Sweet 16. Got Duke beating North Carolina. I have Texas in Region 3 beating Ohio State, and Notre Dame beating TCU, a team that's seeded higher than them, but I think Notre Dame is a lot better. I know that they faltered a little bit down the stretch, but they're one of the best teams in the nation, picking them to win. In the Elite Eight, I have UCLA beating LSU. I think that'll be a great game when they match up. 2 heavyweight teams from 2 power conferences. I think UCLA is going to come out on top. There's a reason they've been the 1 seed down the stretch. Why they've been the 1 seed and been one of the highest. Sorry, not 1 seed, but one of the highest ranked teams all year long. They're just a phenomenal team. In the Region 4 championship game, I have USC coming ahead of UConn for a rematch with UCLA in the Final Four. And then over in Region 2, I have Duke beating South Carolina. That is an upset. South Carolina, it very well could be a Final Four team. They're going to be a popular pick amongst a lot of people. But I think they very well could be upset. Duke's women have been really good this year. They've been a little underrated. You don't ever hear them talked about. I think they could maybe beat South Carolina. Then in Region 3, I have Notre Dame beating the 1 seed Texas and showing why they were the 1 seed or the number 1 team in the nation at one point this year. Why they're so good. Hannah Hidalgo. She is going to lead them to the Final Four. So that leaves our Final Four matchups of UCLA versus USC and Duke versus Notre Dame. I'm picking UCLA to go to the championship game and Notre Dame Fighting Irish to go to the championship game. And I'm picking UCLA to win this game over Notre Dame. I think they've just been the better team all year. And gives us a bit of history here. Back in the day, UCLA's men dominated forever, and Notre Dame was kind of always a thorn in their side, beating them in the regular season. And we get kind of a little bit of history here with UCLA and Notre Dame going head-to-head in the national championship game. I'm picking UCLA. I think I said the final score would be 82. No, I said 83 to 78. 83-78, I think it'll be a close game. But this is a look at my women's bracket. I hope you can see the whole thing here. That's what I have. This video has gone on long enough. Those are my picks. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm right, if I'm wrong, who you've got for your final 4 teams in the men's and women's bracket, who's going to win it all. Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.